It's been just over 1 year since the Parramatta Light Rail opened in Parramatta. And relative to Sydney's other creatively named light rail lines like the L1 and L2 and L3, the Parramatta Light Rail, called L4, has not really been a success if passenger forecasts are the benchmark. The New South Wales government announced on the line's first birthday, just a couple of weeks back, that ridership for the first year is half of what was forecast and is particularly poor on the weekends. BackTracks was there on the opening day on the 20th of December 2024. The opening, I guess, figuratively and literally, of Parramatta Light Rail. And I was the only one there at the depot to see the very first tram leave the depot for revenue service, with the then Transport Minister Joe Halen on board. And I just made it up to Carlingford to ride the very first tram down to Westmead. It was a very festive occasion, and that first tram was packed. Unfortunately, the trams didn't remain that way for the rest of the next year. So BackTracks went back to see the line 1 year on and to see what's happening on stage 2. And the big news is that Sydney is actually building another light rail line. I'm Marty, and welcome to BackTracks. There are plenty of videos about the opening day of the line. So if you're the first to hear about this line, have a look back at one of these. And BackTracks is, well, I could say without bias, definitely one of the videos from that day. And if you can't spend 10 minutes or 5 minutes on double speed to watch an old video, no matter. Here's a quick recap. The Parramatta Light Rail L4 line is a 12-kilometre standard gauge line in Western Sydney, Australia. The line starts in the north at Carlingford, and it heads along the former Carlingford Railway line, which was closed in early 2020. The line basically meanders down from the heights of Carlingford through stations like Talopia, Dundas, Yallamundi, and the next stop is Rosehill Gardens. And let's get off here, because unfortunately not many other people do, because Rosehill Gardens has the dubious honour of being the least used light rail stop in the entire Sydney network, with just 130 people using it each day. And that average is helped by people attending race days at the nearby Rosehill Racecourse. When you're filming, you try not to get people in shots. And I can say this was an easy thing to achieve here, because I hardly saw any people. In fact, the only people I saw got off a tram at the time was tram drivers themselves doing shift changes. It's pretty clear why this is a low-frequented station. There is nothing around here but abandoned buildings, a cement works, and some very light industrial. I'm sure one day this will be a bustling part of Sydney, but not today. The tram does a right-hand turn here and heads west through to the Parramatta CBD and through the most popular stop, which is the Parramatta Square Light Rail stop. And while the line might be not that popular, Parramatta Square is, with over 1 million people tapping on in the first 11 months, which puts it about the same size as Surrey Hills on the L2 and 3 or Juniors Kingsford on the L3 line.
The next stop is Church Street.
The line travels along the southern side of the new metro station and then turns right and heads up north through Church Street, passing the Church Street stop, through what they call Eat Street with all its restaurants, and then it crosses over the Parramatta River. And from here you can see in the distance on the right-hand side the white building, which will be the future Parramatta Powerhouse Museum. And a few stops later, the line then turns south again, and we arrive at the second least used tram stop in Sydney, and that's Nagara. It's situated in a pretty nice part of Parramatta. And of course, being in a nice place isn't necessarily a driver of passenger demand. Actually, in this case, it's probably why the stop has so few people using it. Surrounding it, it's pretty open parkland, with a number of former and current health and hospital buildings dotted about. You could easily argue that this is the prettiest bit of tram infrastructure in Sydney today, with the Greenway going through what is technically called North Parramatta. Then the line passes the current main hospital districts of the Children's Hospital at Westmead and Westmead Hospital itself, before ending at Westmead proper. But while this is the end of the Stage 1 L4 line, this is not the end of the Parramatta Rail journey. As I mentioned earlier, work has actually started on Stage 2, and Stage 2 is planned for a branch from Camellia to Sydney Olympic Park. It'll have 14 stops over 10 kilometres of two-way track. And they say it'll take probably about 38 minutes to travel from Parramatta all the way to Carter Street. Well, a tiny bit of what I guess they're going to call the L5 line is already constructed, because it will use a current section of the line that goes from the L4 line through to the light rail depot, and that's currently not used for passenger services. And they've already created the turnout in preparation, but it abruptly ends a couple of metres later. And it's built on the bones of the former tracks of the Sandown line, which exist for the moment. But once they start construction of the light rail line east from here, I would say all of that old railway line will be ripped up, and another part of Sydney's historical rail infrastructure will be gone forever. Before we get to the section of the line where construction has started, we pass the suburb of Melrose Park. The area generally was light industrial, but is now being converted to residential use. When I visited back in 2024, it was basically vacant land, and now, just over a year later, gigantic new apartment complexes are rising into the sky, built, I'm sure, on the promise that this area one day will be serviced by a light rail line. After Melrose Park, the line heads south to Waratah Street stop and a bridge over the Parramatta River. And just note, for this map, north is on the left and south is on the right. If you read the website, the government says construction of Stage 2 started officially in 2024. Now, delivery of the actual line itself will be staged, and it starts with enabling works to deliver the first 1.3 kilometres of new light rail. And this 1.3 kilometres is not starting from Camellia at the start of the line, but it's actually midway along the line, of which will include construction of a very large bridge over the Parramatta River, linking Melrose Park on the north side and Wentworth Point on the south. They say that the work will take around 4 years to complete. And you can see here, there was once a large car park and toilet block, but that's already gone. And before construction on the bridge proper started, crews had to relocate high voltage wires. It's a massive job. I was lucky enough to see it happen. And trust me, watching those workers up high gave me the heebie-jeebies. Now the high voltage lines have been relocated to the new poles, I guess. The original tower has been removed and work can start in earnest on the bridge itself. And you can see, if you peer over the fence, the first bridge pylons going in. And they've also built on both sides of the river, I guess you call them cofferdams, which protrude a couple of 100 metres into the Parramatta River on both sides. I guess these will be used to construct the pylons that would eventually just sit straight in the river. So that's the north side of the river. Let's head to the south side to see what's happening. And you can see, from where I filmed here on the northern side of the river, work is also progressing well on the southern side. It's a bit harder to film when you're on the southern side because the construction site is quite a distance away from the barricades and fence line. But on the two occasions I visited, I managed to peer a little over the fence. It's hard to tell what's really happening, but I could see enough to see that it's progressing between visits. Although it was really raining on the most recent visits, it was hard to see anything at all. Now the map shows that once the line comes off the bridge, it heads sort of south, and then the alignment turns left to reach Hill Street, where it then turns south and where you'll find the Footbridge Boulevard stop once it's constructed. And then of course the line continues all the way through to Carter Street in Lidcombe. And from what I can see, this 1.3 kilometre section is the only construction currently underway on the Stage 2 line. Hey, but if you've seen other work, please drop me a line in the comments. One of the main topics of discussion in the comments section on YouTube videos on the Parramatta Light Rail is why don't they extend the line from Carlingford to Epping? And I agree, why don't they? Of course, it would be pretty hard to extend it, but from what I can see, there are no plans to do this at all. So I'm just speculating here on how the line could get from Carlingford to Epping. There are two possible routes that could link the two places. One along busy Carlingford Road, which is only 4 lanes, and I can't see anyone giving up 2 of those lanes for light rail, or alternatively, widening it because of all the buildings that would need to be compulsory acquired. Another route option is to go slightly to the south through what would possibly be quieter suburban streets of the West Epping area, going along streets like Willoughby Street via Loftus Square. But interestingly, with all this chat about Epping, originally when they proposed the line, and the main proponent of it was Parramatta City Council, they actually wanted the line to go from Parramatta to the Macquarie Centre via Eastwood and Dundas, and to Castle Hill along the original Rogans Hill Railway route. Now, that is a whole other topic, and I reckon it could take up a full video in itself. So maybe I will do that one day. So there you have it. The L4 is 1 year old. And while a great line to ride along, and I'm sure suiting the purpose of many commuters and travellers, it is so far not living up to the forecasted passenger numbers, but it's showing promise. And stage 2. Well, construction has started on phase 1. But what news on phase 2? And when will it ever be completed? And, well, BackTracks has got a few more videos, I am sure, to make on the new L5 line, and maybe one day on those other lines of what could have been. I hope you enjoyed the video, and looking forward to sharing more BackTracks videos with you soon. Cheers.